Raw Hokum here for Punchout Boxing, joined by the founder himself, Dave Johal. How are you, Dave?
I'm good. Friday, bank holidays around the corner, getting ready for Birmingham up the road for the boxer show tomorrow. Really looking forward to going to that. Watching Joshua BUATSI back on Sky, so it's kind of like a homecoming. I'm really excited to discuss the Canelo fight with you. Um, First off, for me, I've been asking everybody their opinion, and we'll get into that in a second. But Raw, there's no hat. Where's the hat? Have you left it behind, or have you got a new hat now?
The fact that the hat only comes out for fight night, you know that. And I've just come back from vacation. Hairline's looking good. Just back from Turkey. Got to show the hairline off. So don't worry, the hat's not gone anywhere. It's yeah, but it'll make a show for fight night. So yeah, don't worry about the hat. And of course, this weekend, as you said, there's a couple of shows on. The big news is the coronation, of course. I'm not talking about King Charles. I'm talking about my man, John Ryder. If we can start talking about that huge card over in Guadalajara, Mexico. As you know, earlier in the year, I was agonizing as to whether to go to Mexico for us. I, in the end, plumped for going to Tokyo for Inoue and Fulton. And of course, that fell through. So, yeah, stuck in the UK for this first week of spring, but that's all right. So yeah, John Ryder. I mean, if ever there was an example of a fighter who deserves the biggest fight, we're talking about having really earned it. It's got to be him. Had his few defeats early on in his career, stuck with it, kept taking hard fights, and finally has landed the biggest fight in the sport. You know me, I'm a bit of a Canelo hater. I always predict against him. But before we go into my views on the fight, how do you assess it? What's your analysis of it? How's it going to go? What's John's chances?
So everybody I've been speaking to, including a prediction I got from Louis Conahan, sorry, on Wednesday, trainer of Shakan Pitters, Casey Benjamin, over at the East Side Boxing Gym. Who else? Denzel. I spoke to Denzel Bentley, friend of the show. Um, Loads of people that we spoke to. I can't recall everybody. Everybody wants John Ryder to win, including our very own Carl Hall, who unfortunately isn't on the call today, and myself as well. We've seen John Ryder go through hell and back with some of his fights, including the decision loss to Callum Smith, which is
Mm.
quite interesting that night. Some would argue that he should have won. He should have got the decision that day as well. And I was talking to people after that fight, including Clifton Mitchell, and some of the other media present that were there, saying, "Look, that was a robbery. We want John Ryder to win. Is there a possibility that he win? Absolutely. He's got, as people have said, he's got two arms. He can punch. Is it going to be a monumentous task? Yes, it's going to be a very, very difficult task for John Ryder, but that's not to say I don't want him to win. How do I see this going down, Ra? Honestly speaking, I can only see or predict at this moment, based on Canelo's form and the caliber and the weight he jumps up and down, I can only see a Canelo stoppage, probably by about round 7. I
Hmm.
think it's going to be quite as good there as well. He's been present when Canelo um, has fought his man Billy Joe Saunders, and Canelo is a special kind of beast. You could argue he is pound for pound king, but I can't see anything apart from a Canelo stoppage mid rounds. And again, just for the record, I want John Ryder to win. I want those belts on British soil. I want a bit of a shake-up for the super middleweight division. It'll be very interesting. It'll be very silly as well if Team Canelo haven't signed a rematch clause, because John Ryder can punch. He's a fantastic human being. He's a fantastic boxer. Credit to the sport. but I can't see anything past a Canelo stoppage. What about yourself, Rob?
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus, and I'm actually wondering why are people so many people convinced of a Canelo stoppage? Because when has John Ryder ever shown any vulnerability? Yeah, he got stopped by, was it Nick Blackwell? That's way back in 2015, down at middleweight when he was probably boiling
Yeah, I was going to
himself
say that
down.
was not. Yeah, that was not a super middleweight,
Um,
was it?
no, no, it was at middleweight. Since moving up to super middleweight, nobody's put a dent in him, so I don't think there's any fragility about him. Um, so people are going by what Canelo's supposed big punching. Well, is Canelo that big a puncher
Yeah,
at super
possibly.
middleweight?
I think that's where the consensus is. It's gone on what Canelo's done, and I suppose as well it's on Canelo when he fought Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith. I mean, those two fights were quite interesting because at one point as well in the Callum Smith fight, I mean, you analyze the fights, he was just punching Callum Smith's arm,
Hmm.
but that was very tactical, and you saw his arm at the end of that as well. He broke Callum Smith's arm down. Billy Joe Saunders, he was waiting. I think Billy Joe Saunders had some great moments boxing in that fight, but again, when the crowd, it was almost as Asger Chair said it, you know, kind of like the Roman emperors with the thumbs up and thumbs down, waiting for the crowd almost to say, right, okay, this is my moment now. Amir Khan, and I know that look, you know, Amir Khan wasn't a middleweight, natural middleweight, but when he was boxing him, but it's almost like Canelo waits for that moment as well. I don't know what John Ryder can do anything different, you know. The Caleb Plant fight, I think the only time where I wouldn't say the only time, but where the media and the bookmakers got it completely wrong is when Canelo fought Bivol, which how they made Canelo the favorite in that fight, I still don't know. I think it's absolutely ludicrous how they made Canelo the favorite over Dimitri Bivol. It makes zero sense whatsoever.
Mm.
But going on to this fight, I can't see anything, you know, past a Canelo stoppage, and it's not because I'm blinded or anything like that. I'm just basing this on what Canelo has done to a lot of his opponents, and again,
Mm.
he's got a great record against the Brits as well, hasn't he, Ra? And again, for the record, I want John Ryder to win.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it the way most people are. I don't think Canelo is this, fearsome puncher that people think he is. He's only put to sleep Amir Khan, enough said. Um, yeah, Rocky Fielding, he stopped with body shots. Um, Yildirim, he had him down, but he was up. He was up and recovered pretty soon. He quit on his stall more than anything. Billy Joe, well, it was a broken cheekbone allegedly. He weren't put to sleep. I don't think he's this out and out concussive puncher. I think Canelo at his best, what I think he does is he mesmerizes people because I think his ring IQ now has become so high. It's so fast that he's constantly so far ahead of his opponents that whatever they're trying, they're getting hit. And I think that's where Canelo's strength has been in his run to undisputed. And what a hell of a run it's been on paper, at least. But he isn't this out and out awesome puncher. He's not a Gerald McClellan or a Julian Jackson. So I don't see him taking out John Ryder with a single shot in that way. Now, can he
Can't, I
break
agree
him
with you.
down gradually? Yeah, he could. Again, if his ring IQ continues to be so heightened as we've seen. However, there's a difference. This is the first time in a hell of a long time that he's fought someone as short as him, as well as being a southpaw. Combine that with the fact that he was well and truly beaten by Bivol. I think that's had a psychological effect on him because when a fighter has been so dominant for so long and they then get dominated, that usually has a big psychological effect. And I think as a result, subconsciously, Canelo might be just just a tad slower than he has been in the past. There's that subconscious second guessing himself. I think that's what Bivol did to him, because we saw against Golovkin, he didn't up the pace, and people are saying, well, Golovkin's been looking vulnerable. So because of that, and yes, I'm reaching because I am always picking against Canelo. That's where I think that Ryder, the combination of his southpaw stance, being as short as Canelo, so now Canelo won't be able to sort of slip and slide under a taller, more lumbering fighter. And the fact that Canelo, I think, will just be a tad more hesitant than he has been. I think Ryder's going to be well in this. Now, if you're asking me to actually pick Ryder, I mean, it's even I won't go as far as that. Not when it's in Guadalajara.
You would have to let's. I mean, that's another thing I've been asking people as well. I mean, when I spoke to Shakan Pitters, who fights on Saturday on the Boxer card, I spoke to him on Wednesday, and Shakan said Canelo isn't superhuman. John Ryder's got 2 arms, he's got 2 hands, and he can punch, and he's absolutely right. However, on the flip side, would John Ryder need to knock out Canelo in Guadalajara, in his hometown, to win? Is that the only way that he could get? I mean, boxing, I'm not saying it's
no. I think the alleged corruption in favor of home fighters is probably overstated. The example I use is years ago, I remember Julio Cesar Chavez, when he was Don King's biggest cash cow. He eventually did get a decision go against him in Las Vegas against Frankie Randall. But I don't think he has to knock Canelo out. The problem people have with Canelo is he's got such a great chin that even when you're landing, it's not making a visible dent. So I think he would need to be landing punches which are visibly snapping Canelo's back for the judges to really score in favor of him. And I don't think he hits that hard. And for wherever else Canelo might be diminishing in, I don't think his punch resistance is yet. So I don't think we will see those really eye-catching punches landing. So yeah, I don't think John can dominate so clearly that the judges have to give it to him. But yeah, could he stop him? Hey, look, we saw Joe Joyce get stopped in a manner we didn't predict. That is with a closed eye. And Canelo does get cut. He does get cut. So who knows? I think that is probably the most likely way John could win, is if he lands cleanly, sufficiently, he might open up cuts. That could force a stoppage. On points, I don't put it beyond the realms of possibility that he could get a decision. But like I said, I just think because we don't ever see Canelo stopped in his track by punches, I don't think that the judges will give it to him. But in summary, if you're asking for my prediction, I think it will be a Canelo decision, and the scorecards will be a lot more generous. Yeah.
Okay, you're actually into scorecards then as well. So
I think it will be.
What do you think though, UD? Do you think it'll be unanimous?
Yeah, I think it will be a UD. I think that John can win 4 or 5 rounds, but the judges will probably only give him 2 or 3 of them. Yeah.
There as well, I don't know if you've got BoxRec open, but the fountain of knowledge that you you probably already know this at the top of your head. My memory is very hazy.
My memory's going as well.
It's age, isn't it? It's age. We're not as sharp as we were, but if you just reel off Canelo's last 6 opponents and John Ryder's, just as a comparison, and we're going to pop these up on the screen as well, guys, as well. But what were Canelo's last 6 opponents?
We're talking Golovkin, Bivol, Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, Avni Yildirim, Callum Smith, Sergei Kovalev, Danny Jacobs, Rocky Fielding, Gennady Golovkin twice, that's his run for the past 5 years. Very impressive. But the interesting thing is there is common opponents. John Ryder, of course, lost to Rocky Fielding, who Canelo dealt with without breaking sweat barely. He arguably beat Callum Smith, although not as comprehensively as Canelo. And he was fortuitous probably in beating Danny Jacobs, whereas Canelo was a clear winner, if not dominant. So, but look, styles make fights. I don't think you can read too much into how they dealt with those three common opponents. Sorry, four common opponents. John Ryder fought Billy Joe Saunders early in his career as well and lost. So, yeah. So, but actually, it's interesting. Based on that, I mean, let's look at John Ryder's last dozen or so. Zach Parker, Danny Jacobs, Yurko, Guy. Fair enough, those are tune-ups. Callum Smith, Akawi, Sirotkin, two unbeaten prospects. So, I don't think Ryder's run recently is anything to be laughed at. And in fact, amongst the other super middleweight contenders, it's the best. Like I said, that's why this man deserves this big fight.
100%. And when we look at the actual, and again, we're completely unbiased, and in this, we'd never take sides. Myself, or the channel never takes sides.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to, I have to say one thing. When it came to Matchroom and Eddie making this fight, it was almost as if they were defending John Ryder's position, and it doesn't need to be defended.
Mm-hmm.
It does not need to be defended. Like, John Ryder is a live opponent. He's been given an opportunity to fight. And, if anything, I think on this occasion, Matchroom and Eddie have been given more of a hard time than when it was, Yildirim versus Canelo, if I'm being honest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think to be fair, though, I think they're having to defend the fight. It's more to the American audience. The American and Mexican audience probably think, oh, another Brit. Well, Canelo's chewed them up, for the past, couple of years. So
a couple of years. Yeah. I mean, let's talk about. I think it started with Matthew Hatton, didn't
it? All right. Yeah. Yeah.
No disrespect, Matthew Hatton, great fighter, great trainer, but the run of Brits, it started. I remember this as well. Maybe you had the similar sort of journey into this, which is, oh, are you watching the fight? Mm-hmm. No. Well, who's fighting? Oh, Matthew Hatton is fighting this unbeaten Mexican. All right, I'll give it a watch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my introduction, like a lot of people, to Canelo. Now, this is pre-internet days, mm-hmm. when you can go onto YouTube and see the knockout. You really have to search for this content. I think Sky Sports at the time showed it, but it was interesting then as well to then think that the run of Brits that Canelo went through, this is in no order whatsoever, but people like Rocky Fielding, Callum Smith, and Callum Smith is a very good win for Canelo, in my opinion, because winner of the Super 6 tournament, a super middleweight champion, world super middleweight champion. Who else was there? Amir Khan was a bit of a strange one when he went up in, almost was it 2 weight classes?
It was 2 weight classes, yeah.
2 weight classes, and it was a case of, wow, he's really going through the Brits. But just on where we are, I think we're unified that, we want John Ryder to win 100%. But in terms of method of victory, I am going to be leaning towards my prediction of a mid stoppage for Canelo, purely based on just the caliber of fighters he's fought, and I wouldn't say the people I wouldn't say just based on the Brits, but it's more a case of he might stop him. In fact, I'm going to say it'll be stopped, as opposed to John Ryder being knocked out, because I can't see John Ryder being knocked out. I think it'll be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm leaning towards, and I think it'll be done mid round. And want to be proven wrong. I
Hmm.
want to be proven wrong. We want those belts so we can shake up the super middleweight division. And John Ryder, 100% deserves everything that's coming to him. And what a great guy.
Yeah,
Ra, you're going for points, aren't you, for
I am
Canelo?
going for
And
points. I think John Ryder will make it a lot more difficult than it's expected, and it will probably cement in people's minds that Canelo, his decline has begun. Nothing wrong with that, incidentally. There's too much hate on fighters that go in decline. The nature of this sport is one which makes the participants decline. So, yeah, that's where I'm going with that. Points for Canelo. Any of the other undercard fights on the show that take your interest? Obviously, the flyweight Martinez is back. He was hot property at one point. Personally, I've gone off him. He's another of these unreliable fighters that are in and out. And really, I want Sonny Edwards to relieve him of that belt now.
yeah, I mean, that fight's coming up. I think we're possibly going to be there, aren't we, in June?
Hmm.
Um, Wembley. Unfortunately, in regards to the undercard and the co-main event, because I'm going to be at the boxer card, I haven't really had time to study it. Um, but I'm with you as well. I think if Sonny Edwards does, I mean, Sonny Edwards is a fantastic boxer. One thing that we can rely on Sonny Edwards on is his boxing ability and his IQ.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's going to be a great night of boxing on the 10th. But just going onto the boxer card, um, we've got the return of Joshua BUATSI on Sky Sports,
Hmm.
and the inaugural, I suppose, that British history being made with Lauren Price versus Kirsty Bavington,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
not
which
before
is quite
time.
interesting. Yep. So I think with with that fight, history being made, and it's the King's coronation as well. You know, it's quite an interesting sort of time. But what fights on that card interest you? Will you be watching that, then getting a bit of sleep, and then getting up for Canelo? Or are you going to watch it in the morning, the Canelo fight, and avoid all social media?
Yeah, my days are staying up all night. They're few and far between, so I won't be staying up all night. I will have to get up and watch the recorded version. But the BUATSI show is intriguing. I think he's under a bit of pressure now because the manner in which he departed from Matchroom and DAZN, the things he said about the broadcast situation, and the fact that he turned down a shot at the world title, he's got some serious convincing to do, which is a shame because in terms of talent, he's always been the most highly rated fighter. I think from that was it the 2016 generation, and yet
Hmm.
he's arguably his career has so far been underwhelming for his level of talent. Um, so yeah, I think he needs to win and win in impressive fashion now. If that cements his position as mandatory challenger to Bivol, then he could say it was vindicated. Um, because he'd rather take that fight as a mandatory challenger. But yeah, I think he's under a bit of pressure there. I think he will do the good. I mean, Pavel Stepien, we don't know much about him, but we do know he hasn't fought any top level guys. And of course, there's a few good fights on the undercard. So yeah,
There are
Tyler Denny, for example, against Macaulay McGowan, that's come up out of the blue. That's a brilliant fight. Um,
both on great form as well, and very similar form, so that makes an interesting fight.
yeah, Tyler Denny, it's a EBU external middleweight title fight. I don't know what that exactly means, but Tyler Denny's one of them fighters that he deserves to be pushed on now. That he's been done dirty by the board, beaten 4 unbeaten prospects in a row, and still hasn't been named as mandatory for the British title of our friend Denzel. So
And
yeah.
what's really interesting is when I spoke to Linus Udofia a few weeks ago when I was doing commentary with him and Denzel,
Hmm.
we spoke about Tyler Denny, and he was just talking about how relentless Tyler Denny is and how
Hmm.
much of how he just keeps going forward. throwing bombs like he's, packed with Duracell batteries. He just carries on going and going and going. He's so relentless in his punching, and Linus is like, do we have to keep on doing this sort of thing? Like it's it's interesting. One person, he's like, is this going to stop? So in a good way, he's relentless in a good way. But that's an interesting fight. The fight that I'm really looking forward to on the card isn't the Babington, sorry, the Price versus Babington one. I think Joshua BUATSI stops STEPIEN in 4 to 5 rounds based on the level of opponents BUATSI's faced, his caliber of fighting, and also because I think he wants to put on a show. So I think he'll stop him in about 4 rounds. But the fight I'm actually looking forward to is Casey Benjamin versus Sean McComb. I think that one's going to be a very interesting fight, both with similar records.
Yeah.
I spoke to Casey this week. He definitely wants to avenge the loss of Dalton Smith. He said he doesn't want to be known as the guy who's lost to Dalton Smith. If he wins, he wins the European, the WBO European Super Light title, and as well, right? Division is absolutely stacked. Maxwell, there's massive red hot division domestically. Forget about world level. World level is the elite of the elite, but domestically, this division is completely stacked. To have all these talented people in one division, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. So that fight is going to be, I think that's the one that's going to catch fire, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
And
Sean
Shakan Pitters, he returns as well.
Yeah, Shakan Pitters, Ben
Pitters,
Whitaker. So they're building a good little crop of light heavyweights over there at Boxer. So obviously, yeah, they seem to be picking out certain divisions to build their crop of stable in, so that they can put on some great in-house fights. So yeah, great for you guys up there in the Midlands. So final prediction on that: you're going back BUATSI, comfortable
Yeah,
win.
BUATSI stopping. Yeah, comfortable win. I think Casey Benjamin being in his home crowd, I think that will go to points. I can't see him stopping Sean McComb, but I think it will be a points victory. Shakan Pitters, I can see him stopping. I think he's fighting Joel McIntyre. I think he'll stop him. Joel McIntyre's record 26-0, I think it is, top of my head. But I think
Yeah.
I think Shakan. There you go. My memory's not that bad. I think Shakan will win inside the distance. I can't predict the round. I think Lauren Price doesn't stop Babington, but I think she wins on points to be crowned the British. And it's a special moment as well. The first female title fight sanctioned by the British Board of Boxing Control. I think she'll win on points. I can't see her stopping Babington. And Ben Whitaker,
he's our man.
Yeah, he's polarizing. It reminds me a bit of James DeGale in terms of the polarization. I think he must be a Street Fighter 2 fan because he does do Hadouken sort of movements and stuff. But I can see him. Is he fighting Jordan Grant, the person who fought Tommy Fury? I think, is that right?
Yep, he's
a while ago.
He's fought a few
Is that Jordan Grant
contenders. It is, yeah. Yeah, he's not bad, the Scotsman. Let's see how that goes. So
it'll be interesting.
It will be. Good to have Ben Whitaker back. All right, let's we've got to wrap up. I think we're almost out of time. Good weekend after a quiet one last week for us to look forward to. And what about the coming week? We got a busy week or summer of boxing coming up. Next weekend, I got 2 shows. Friday night at York Hall, we've got Queensbury's show. Ellis Zorro looking to get in amongst the cruiserweight mix, fighting Hosea Burton. That'll be a fascinating one. And then on the Saturday is the mini shows at the Peacock Gym, where you get a few prospects. Interestingly, Dee Allen, the danger woman that all of these welterweights are going to have to confront eventually. So she'll be watching Price and Babington, no doubt. So that'll be next Saturday. What about yourself? What you got for the week ahead?
So I will be speaking to Shabazz the Maverick Masood, who had a stoppage victory against Jack Bateson last, I think it was October or November, I can't remember, over in Sheffield. Brilliant prospect trained by Ben Davidson. When I spoke to Ben, he said that Shabazz is fringe world level contender now. I think he holds the WBA International Super Bantamweight title. Great prospect. Trains out of the Ben Davison camp. Trains alongside another person you know quite well, Chris Congo, and a lot of the fighters over there. So I'm going to be speaking to Shabazz, and we've got some more sort of interviews coming up on Zoom as well. So yeah, thank you for everyone who subscribed so far. Spread the good word. It does keep us active. And next week, make sure to check out all the footage that Ra will be bringing. Have you got any Zoom interviews lined up so far, Ra? Or?
I've done a face-off for TM14's headliner in 2 weeks, just this afternoon. So that'll be up shortly. So yes, and yeah, hopefully a few more with some female stars coming up. So keep your eyes peeled.
Good stuff. Ra, all the best. Thank you so much. And we will catch up soon.
We will indeed. Have a good weekend.